Welcome to Bold Moves, the show spotlighting fearless trailblazers, entrepreneurs, and visionaries forging new paths across Arizona and beyond. Each episode, we dive deep into uplifting stories, game-changing strategies, and the unstoppable spirit powering real transformation. Whether you're launching a business, chasing a dream, or reshaping your community, get ready to unleash your boldness. Join your host, Matt Torres, as he sparks your imagination, amplify action, and help you thrive. So buckle up and let's ignite your boldest moves yet.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. This is really kind of cool.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're BNI, right? So BNI is how we met. And it's just crazy, BNI, it's just a really good organization to connect with people and stuff. But
yeah,
just to kind of give the audience a little feel about who you are, because you're my special guest today, you're Mr. Anthony Bell. Kind of fill us in on who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So, obviously my name is Anthony. I work with Audio Video 360. So I've been in the AV industry since back in 2018. And, I really kind of got conned into this industry. And I say that because, I went to college for audio production and engineering, and right out of college, I could not find any work. It's really kind of you need to know people industry, and I just didn't have the connections to find any job placement right out of the gate. So I moved back in with my parents briefly, and I started job hunting online, and then I found a home theater install job posting, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. It's not exactly what I went to college for, but that still sounds fun. I'm still working with speakers and audio and that kind of stuff. And so I apply, I get the job, move up to Montana. This all happened in the span of 2 weeks. And I pack my car up, I drive up to Montana, and my first day on the job, I'm in a rough-in house, no drywall or anything, just bare-bone house, pulling wire. Mm-hmm. And that was my life for the next 6 months. I did not see a speaker or a TV for about 6 months.
Wow.
And I was just thankfully I did fall in love with it, but I just remember the first week, I was like, what did I just get myself into? I was expecting to be tuning speakers and doing these cool home theater setups, and instead I'm going home covered in drywall dust and insulation every night and just pulling wires. So that was kind of my introduction to the industry. And then from there, I moved back down here. I did commercial install, ASU type work for about a year. And then eventually I met Ray, who's the owner of Audio Video 360, when I worked at Rebel Media Group. So he was my boss at Rebel Media Group. He decided to part ways, and then I kind of replaced him, and I decided to part ways. And then I was kind of hopping from place to place. Ray and I still stayed in contact. And then one day he was like, hey, why don't you come kind of help me get this thing started that I'm trying to work on? And so I just kind of part-time here and there on the weekends would go help him with some projects and things like that. And then he was like, hey, what if I offered you sort of partnership in this deal? Because I really need somebody who's consistent, who can help me out. And so I agreed to that. And with the understanding that I still needed to make money, so I couldn't just afford to completely jump ship at the time. Mm-hmm. So fast forward 6 months, I sold my condo, had a little bit of money, was really getting fed up with where I was at. And so I had a meeting with Ray, and I just told him, look, I'm at the point now where I could go 6 months without income if need be. I don't want that to happen, but I also don't see this being successful until I make that jump. Burn the boats, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
As long as I have a backup plan, I'm never going to be fully committed to this.
Yeah.
And so I quit my job, my full-time job, and went full-time Audio Video 360. And, praise God that the moment I did, we just became flooded with work, and it's been a full-time job ever since. And
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's been great.
So Audio Video 360, is it just commercial, or is it also residential? Everything?
We do pretty much everything. We started this out just wanting to be purely home audio video. We really wanted to keep it simple and give ourselves good quality of life. But the nature of our business is people ask for stuff, and if we have the ability to do it, we're inclined to do it. So it went from that to, okay, now we do security, now we do surveillance. Now we're getting back into LED, which is what we both had a background in before this. So we're just kind of, doing a little bit of everything now.
Nice.
So,
Man, talk about like, well, I think it's coincidental, not coincidental. I think it's interesting. Talk about praising God, because like how interesting is it that you're my guest today, focusing on audio video stuff. So, like quite a bit about like sound stuff.
yeah.
And so no one else knows like, the setup process for getting like a podcast. You got your soundboard phone. Lo and behold, we get ready to shoot, and my microphone doesn't work. We're like, wait a minute, what's going on? And I'm like fumbling with the soundboard. And keep in mind, like, I'm not a sound professional. Like, I'm an amateur. Right. Like, I figured stuff out on YouTube and I try to tinker with stuff. But when there's curveballs thrown my way, like, I need time to figure it out. And when we're on the fly like that, it's kind of embarrassing.
Oh yeah,
that's like, I'm so thankful that you were here as my guest and you knew exactly what to do.
Otherwise you'd be looking up YouTube videos and like, what caused this?
It was awesome because you go straight to the soundboard and like, you already know what to look for. And I'm like, oh, thank God, because I don't know. And just to kind of fill everyone in, it was, what was it? Was it an issue with the mic, or it was?
Pretty sure it was an issue with
the channel.
The channel version.
Yeah. So I wouldn't have known that. I would have been spending hours like trying to figure it out. So anyway, problem resolved. We were able to get the channel situation
we're all good to
fixed. You've really like just helped like keep the show going, because we would have had to have a major reset up. That's cool, man. No, that's really cool. So just to kind of let everyone in the audience know, just to kind of recap what Bold Moves podcast is all about. We talk about people and their bold moves, their journey, risks that they take, talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, like what they learn from it. And from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you've taken some bold move, which is exactly what we talk about. I'm really excited to kind of hear how that goes.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to, ask you, when we talk about that leap and kind of rewind just a little bit, what did your life and work life look like before you made that decision to make that jump?
So because it wasn't necessarily a direct jump, it was kind of a progressive transition. I would say it's hard to, pinpoint like this was my life before, this was my life after. But if I were to go like prior to even talking with Ray about joining Audio Video 360, my life was pretty cushy. I kind of always lived a life of security. I wasn't a big risk taker. When I was younger, I was, but professionally and in my adult life, I've really kind of shied away from taking risks out of fear of failure, which I think is pretty common for people. So, my life before, I had a stable job. I'm in an industry where if I lose work for whatever reason, I can usually find a job within a couple weeks. So I typically never had to worry about being out of work. And so I would say, I was very comfortable, very safe. And the main thing that sort of pushed me towards this was the understanding that I struggle working for other people, especially when I don't agree with how they operate their business. So one of the companies I worked for just did very shady things. I'm not going to get into it a whole lot, but I just didn't agree with a lot of their practices. And that was frustrating, being the customer facing person, because when customers had issues, it came back on me. And so after dealing with that with a few different companies, I finally got to the point where I just realized, I'm young. I don't have kids. At the time I wasn't engaged. And so I was like, I don't have a whole lot to lose. And if I'm going to fail, if I'm going to make mistakes and have to restart, so to speak, now's the time to do it. There's not really going to be a better time. So that's really kind of what motivated me to take this leap. And there have been hard times. There's been hard months. There's been times where I wondered, are we going to make it through this? But ultimately, it's just been, it's been a lot of testing of my mettle just to see like, what can I take and how hard am I willing to push myself to get through these things. And I think I've both impressed myself as well as my fiance and Ray, just with my bandwidth and my ability to handle it all.
Yeah.
So
So you're a partner.
yeah, we kind of have an interesting partnership agreement. I'm not like a 50-50 partner. Um, so he is the owner of the company. I accrue a percentage of the company each year. So after 10 years, his goal is to retire, and then I become majority shareholder, for lack of a better word. And then he gets a certain percentage of profit that he retires off of from the company. And then I kind of become the owner, for lack of a better word, and I run the company and do all the operations.
That's a pretty cool setup, actually.
Yeah, I'm very blessed. And, I I feel like there's not a lot of people out there willing to give those kinds of opportunities out to people that they, unless they're family. Like family members do that all the time for each other, but to just meet somebody who was my boss and then for him to take me under his wing and mentor me and help me do this is really awesome.
Yeah, that's cool because like I'm like in a similar situation, but it's just amazing how like God puts people in your life. Yes. And you don't really think about it all that much when things are happening, but then things kind of settle and you're like, wow, like there's no coincidence in it. I don't think. I think it's designed, and it's just, man, you just kind of sit back in awe really when you kind of see things unfold and like, okay, and I think the real magic starts to happen when you obey,
Yes.
When God's telling you something, you're like, okay. And you follow, and then you're like, oh, wow. Like just good things happen because I've just know from experience when you don't obey, things just don't go.
Things can go pretty bad.
Yeah. And oh man, I mean, thankfully things never got super bad, but things, when I was younger, I didn't obey and things didn't go well. And you kind of like, okay, all right, stop your hand and you kind of move on. But that's a really good setup that you have because there is a lot of risk in like being a business owner.
Right.
And in essence, it almost feels like he's protecting you from that to kind of pave the way to build something and then transition to kind of get those kinks out. That's awesome. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's really, and I mean, when I told my family about it, they were very skeptical. They're like, oh, you need to be getting this in writing. You need to see why and make sure. And I'm like, if he wanted to screw me over, he would have. I mean, and I just don't think like you're saying, when God puts these people in your life, he does it for a reason. And the timing just couldn't have been better. And like you were saying, when you don't obey, like there's been so many times where I'm like, oh man, I just don't think I can do that. Like, I don't think I can make that lifestyle change or, whatever it may be. And then it's like, I don't have a choice. I find myself literally getting forced to make those changes if I want to get where I want to get to.
Yeah.
Like there is no having it both ways. You don't get to both go party every weekend and run a successful business. Not that that's what I was doing, but just for the analogy. Mm-hmm. Like time management has become such a big thing for me, and it was something I never had to do. I always despised living on a schedule. I value my free time, and I really valued just having the free time to do whatever, not having to have everything written out. But now I do. I mean, it's like when I make plans on the weekend, it is literally, okay, I'm doing this in the morning, this in the afternoon, and I like it now. Like I've grown to appreciate that because it allows me to fit a lot more things into my day-to-day life.
That's when I was, I don't know how old I was. I was probably like probably like mid-20s, late 20s. My wife and I were going on a trip to California to Disneyland back when Disneyland wasn't so, crazy. And we took her parents. And I remember I put up an entire schedule. I went on, made a spreadsheet and driving directions. And this is like before, Google and all this stuff was.
So you had to print it out.
You had to print out like directions, like MapQuest and an itinerary and where we're going, all this other stuff, like a whole packet. And I remember I was so proud of it. And I had like this little folder and I gave it to her dad because he was driving one car and I was in my car and we were in our car. And it was just like funny, when I think about it now, but like it was like full blown schedule. And it was just like, it's just the way your mind thinks, you're like, oh man, that's crazy.
But it makes things a lot easier.
It does. It really does, because when you get there, you're kind of like, oh, okay, if we want to do this, then we're going to have to skip this and that, it really does make sense. But
Yeah.
sometimes you can get a little crazy or overboard.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. You can definitely go over.
but it's interesting. You were talking about your parents were saying, oh, you need to get it in writing and this and that. But I also feel like there's your gut instinct, and I've said this like on other podcasts too. Like I really do believe like that gut instinct, people call it, like I have a gut feeling. I really do feel personally it's like the Holy Spirit like talking to me saying, hey,
Yeah.
like this, this may not be a good fit, or hey, you know what, this is okay. Because so many times I've gotten like burned, and my gut was always telling me, okay, don't do this. Like, oh, there's something weird, there's something off about like this dude or whatever. Because I remember I was going into a business partnership, probably this was like 2012, and I remember the guy I was like working with. There was something like my gut feeling was telling me like you shouldn't work with this dude, and I was like thinking, no, this is fine. Like they're justifying whatever it may be to to justify making the partnership work.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it turned out he was a scammer, scammed me and my clients like tons of money. And yeah, I still with it to this day. And it really kind of like just eats me up that I let that happen.
Right.
And the funny thing though is my wife saw it. Like he would call me, and my wife was like, I don't like how he's talking to you and this and that. And, it's like, I wish I would have listened to both my wife and, that gut feeling, the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
But I didn't. And it's also one of those things. I got tons of examples, by the way. Like say I did, but when you realize that, and when I tell myself now that gut feeling, it's not just a gut feeling, like it's something more,
Right.
then it puts a little more weight into it. And you're like, okay. And when I decided to listen to that more, then things started to actually make more sense and like pan out. And I think when you meet people, you can have that sense. I think some people know, like when they meet people, and if they're about to do a business relationship, that gut feeling, it will tell you whether or not like this is like a deal to do. And if there's something that's off, bounce,
Right.
Like which I think is important. I always tell my kids that, like, if you get that gut feeling, listen to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot to it. I think there's a lot more to everything that a lot of people realize. I think you probably do more so now, but
Oh yeah. Yeah. 1,000%.
I'm curious. So there's usually like this breaking point or like this catalyst that happens, before or pushing us to make this move. What was it that just finally kind of pushed you to say, okay, this is what needs to happen? Like, the saying, the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
Like, what was that moment for you?
I think that moment was, so without naming names, the company I was with right before I jumped ship and went all in with Audio Video 360, they were kind of on their way out. They ended up filing Chapter 11 like 2 weeks after I left. So I literally jumped a sinking ship without even really realizing it. I guess I kind of realized it because my checks were showing up late. So, and that really was what kind of pushed me over the edge, was just, again, being completely financially dependent on somebody else. It's, I think a lot of people think of it as, oh, the company pays me, which in a way is true. But especially with these kind of smaller businesses, it's really somebody else paying you, because the owner usually wears multiple hats.
Yeah.
And so, you don't get that same sense of like job security that a lot of people get from working for bigger corporations, which even they really shouldn't have a very strong sense of job security. But, you especially kind of get that working for a smaller company where you're like, oh, this company could go under at any point. Like we're one bad month away from having to lay people off. And that's pretty much where he was at. The problem was he was not transparent at all. And so that for me, kind of like if I'm already going to be in a somewhat risky situation, why not give myself a little bit more control over the situation? Because then at least if it fails, if I, miss out on something, it's my own fault. And I'm not solely dependent on somebody else being successful, on my own success. So there was that aspect of it, as well as just knowing like, you're really kind of capped out at what you can make as an employee. Whereas if you start to work for yourself, there really is no limit. It's more of what is your bandwidth? What is your ability, volume wise? And so just those realizations are really what pushed me. And I just realized I'm not wired to be an employee forever. I'm always going to find issues. I'm always going to be dissatisfied over time with how things operate if I don't have a say in how they operate. So, yeah, that's ultimately what pushed me, is just having those kind of understandings.
So what does your day-to-day look like with your job right now? Like what is it that you're actively doing?
So it varies. I would say a lot of what we've been doing lately are remodels. So we go in, pull some wire, install some speakers. We've been doing we haven't been doing, but we're getting pulled into these TV accent wall jobs. So they'll rip out the existing wall. They do a linear fireplace, gas or electric, and then they'll do, kind of a stone accent wall. We do a recessed box to house gear, hang a TV on it. And then we'll do like 4-inch ceiling speakers, subwoofer. So we've been doing a lot of those lately. But I mean, today, right after this, I'm going and installing some cameras. And then tomorrow I've got a Sonos audio job over at a high school. So we really kind of jump all around, do a little bit. And that's what I love about it, is like every day is something a little different.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
So Sonos audio, that's like the really good audio, right? The brand. I've seen
Audiophiles would disagree, but
really,
but yeah, Sonos is, I equate them to like the Apple of audio, in the sense that they have great technology. It is great quality. But people who are really snobby about their audio hate it.
Really?
Yeah. And it's just, I mean, it's the same thing with iPhones, right? Like people who have Androids absolutely despise iPhones because of their lack of customization and their processing and all that. So yeah, I mean, you can get into the really high-end audio, and you have, I mean, even Macintosh to some people isn't that high-end. Like there's a whole nother level to audio that I haven't even really dove into, just because I don't have the need to. It's, at that point, you're pretty much just dealing with 2-channel stereo. You're talking like $50,000 tower speakers, and it gets crazy. But for home audio, like I would put Sonos up against any receiver, any other audio distribution system for that price point. You just can't beat it.
So like when I hear it's plug and play, right? Pretty much. Like,
yeah, pretty much.
When you say it's like the Apple of it, I'm like, I'm all in. Like
Yeah.
For me, like that's appealing. Like I had an Android for a long time and I didn't do anything with it. I didn't go in and like root it or anything and do all kinds of crazy stuff. I just used it.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, why am I all about Android? Like, and I got an iPhone. I was like, this is the best thing ever. Like it just works. Like,
Yeah.
I
don't have to do anything.
No, I remember having an Android and having to do a lot of extra stuff because stuff wouldn't work. And I'm like, why isn't this working? Like it should just work. And I would have to like go online and research how to figure stuff out. Now with an iPhone, I've never really had that. It's just like, darn. And then the great thing is like, it just connects to my computer. Like, I think the coolest thing was like AirDrop. Like when if I have a video in here or anything, I just like click my computer on the thing and boop, it's on there. Like I would have to go through so many hoops with an Android to like hook up cables and download the software.
Oh yeah.
Just to move files here. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
and now if you have an Apple TV, you can just directly stream from your phone to your TV. Like I do that all the time. Yeah, it's such a great analogy too, because like you're saying, once you have Apple products, they all just work together so seamlessly. And that's exactly how Sonos is too. You can just have a whole house full of Sonos products and they all just work like seamlessly. And if one thing goes down, right, it's not like a normal audio distribution system. You have like your main amplifier, you might have a couple depending on the size, and then you have like an audio matrix, and then you have your players, whether that's like, some sort of streaming box. And if one of those things goes out, you lose audio in like at least half your house. Versus with Sonos, if one of your amplifiers go out, that's just one zone. Or if your soundbar stops working for whatever reason, that's just one zone. The rest of your house still works. So that's the other reason I really like Sonos, is it is so compartmentalized that when one device fails, it's not like your whole system goes out.
yeah,
Which is the problem with these big control systems that people sell. It's like you have your main controller, the brain, and if anything happens to that, sometimes it just needs a firmware update. And something as simple as that can take your entire system out. and you're sitting around waiting for days, maybe even a week for a technician to come out and fix it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like everything we do is, one, very simple to use, but two, can be managed remotely. And that is my other favorite part, is I would say 85% of the issues I have with projects, I can remotely fix, which is amazing. Like I'll get somebody saying, hey, this camera's not online, or hey, this access point went offline, and I can go into their system from my phone and reset something, update something. 90% of the time, that's what it is. Just power cycle it or update it. And then it comes back on, and I don't need to roll a truck out there.
So that's actually very handy.
Yeah. Saves me time, saves the customer time.
Yeah.
Saves them the headache. They don't have to wait 2 or 3 days for me to get out there, because that's about how long it would take. It's like, well, I got this job today, this job tomorrow. I'll see you Thursday. Instead, I can just be on the road, pull over real quick, take care of it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Sonos, they're not cheap, right? I mean,
no. They're not particularly cheap.
So what do you think of those sound bars? Like, because I go to Costco and I see the Sonos set up, the big sound bar. It's like, I think it's like $1,000 almost.
Yeah, the new Arc Ultra is $1,000. Now, the thing with Sonos that I think a lot of people miss is when you look at the comparable systems that Sonos is replacing, they're about the same price. In some cases a little cheaper, in some cases a little more expensive, just depending. I personally, so I have that exact setup in my house. I have the Sonos Arc, not the Ultra, that one just came out, but I have the Sonos Arc. I have the Era 300 rears, which also act as overheads, and then I have 2 subwoofers. That system altogether is about like $2,500.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a Dolby Atmos surround sound system, which is awesome. And it didn't require me to cut any drywall. When I move, that system comes with me. It's all wireless. So there's no wiring that I had to pull, no drywall cutting. Everything plugs into power. I just pulled outlets up for the Era 300, so they're on floating shelves behind my couch. So when I move, I don't have to leave behind speakers that I spent $1,000 for. I don't have to worry about any of that. I can just unplug it, take it with me, set it up in my next house. So, and it's a zone. So like I also have 2 in-ceiling speakers in my kitchen, in-ceilings in my master bedroom, bathroom. And so they're all separate zones. And if I wanted to get an audio matrix and an amplifier that could power 5 zones, that alone is going to be a few $1,000s.
Wow.
So
you could have speakers and they're all playing different stuff?
Yeah. Every single zone could be playing something different.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, like, it's been so long since I've even looked at audio stuff. I still remember of like having the actual wires and having to, like, if you're not going to cut in drywall, have like them hidden in the corner with a little strip or something, like a little wire concealer run along the baseboard.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do that now. It's all wireless.
No one can do that. Yeah.
Okay. That's cool.
And that's the other thing I always tell people too. I'm like, sure, you can go a little bit cheaper and we can pull all the wire for you, but the amount of labor it's going to take for me to pull these wires all to the head end and set everything up there, you're pretty much spending the same amount.
Yeah.
Even though the amplifier might be a little bit more expensive, like going the Sonos route, you're saving money on the labor side. So there's really, it's almost a wash at the end of the day, because installing Sonos is way less labor on my side of things. And it's also way easier for the end user to use. So I think there's a lot more reasons to get Sonos than to not. And there are some other cheaper options that function pretty similarly to Sonos. The same way there's other options for Apple or for AirPods that are a little bit cheaper, but they always seem to have some sort of flaws.
Yeah.
So
you do that. Did you say you also do like networking or?
Yeah. So we do networking. We do Eero networks. So Eero is a wireless mesh network. Well, I should say it can be wireless. So you kind of have your main router, that would live with your modem. So most people right now, right, they have their Coax. If you're in Arizona, you have your Coax panoramic Wi-Fi modem, which you hook the coax up to it. That is your router. It's also your wireless network. What we do is disable that wireless network on your modem. We plug in an Eero router to it. That becomes your new wireless network. And I always match the SSID and password identically, so you're not needing to reconnect any of your devices. It just comes right back up. Yeah. And then from there, if you have other hardwire connections around the house, great. We'll go plug in additional Eeros to those hardwired connections to expand your wireless network throughout your house. If you don't, it's not a problem. We can just plug the new Eeros in forever. And as long as they're within a close enough proximity of the main one, they boost your wireless signal.
Wow.
Yeah. So like, I think the biggest house we've covered with Eero, I think it was like 5,000 or 6,000 square feet, pretty decent sized house.
Yeah.
And we covered it with a total of 4 Eeros, I think, which is pretty solid.
So how much of a boost can someone see on their speeds doing that?
So you're not really going to see a boost per se. Like, you're not going to get faster speeds than what you're already getting. What you're going to get is more consistent speed. So let's say you're paying for Gigablast through Cox.
Yeah.
And that modem lives in your office on the side of the house. In your master bedroom on the other side of the house, your speeds are probably over Wi-Fi like 150, 200 maybe. If we do an Eero next to the modem, do an Eero maybe somewhere in the living room, and then do an Eero over in your master, you're going to be getting 750, 800 in your master bedroom. You're not going to get over a gig. It's not going to amplify what you're already paying for. It's just going to make it more consistent throughout the house.
Wow. Yeah, because I know I'm not getting a gig like
right
in some areas of my house at all. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And I would say Eero is actually extremely affordable. Like, you can go get a pack off Amazon for $300-$400, depending on if it's on sale, like a pack of 3, which is more than what most people need. Like, if your house is under 2,500 square feet, that'll be plenty.
So what's the difference between the Eero and, say, like the Google Mesh system that they have too? I think, what doesn't Netlink have one too?
Yeah. So TP-Link has one. Google has their version. And I can't entirely speak to their quality. I don't want to, speak out of turn. What I have noticed is the TP-Link one don't have as good of a range. So like, one house we went and did work at, it was probably a 2,200 square foot house, not crazy big. And they had about 5 or 6 of those little TP-Link devices around their house, and they were still having network issues.
Wow.
We came in and installed a total of 4 Eeros, including one in the backyard, which they had no coverage in the backyard previously. And that covered their entire property with way better speeds.
Wow.
So and every situation is different. Maybe there could have been a way for those TP-Links to be configured better, or, maybe that just wasn't the right environment for them and there's more applicable environments for them. That could be the case, but just based on what I've seen, Eero does just have superior technology. And then as far as Google goes, I went and troubleshot a Google system once. I don't have anything negative to say about it. I just based on my experience, Eero always works. I've never had any issues. And it's really simple. And I'm not sure about Google's technology, but like with Eero, you have the ability to go and see all the devices connected to your network. You also have the ability to block devices on your network. So that's one of the selling points Ray always uses with people, is like people with kids. It's like, oh, if they're acting up, misbehaving, block their Xbox from the internet or block their phone from the internet. You can.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm liking that.
Yeah. And then they do have a paid subscription as well, where you can also filter out certain websites and things like that, which I think is super handy. Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah. So there's a lot of cool features.
Now, do you totally just get rid of the Cox modem thing?
No.
You just don't use it as a Wi-Fi router.
Correct. Well, it depends. If you have fiber coming into your house, you have a fiber modem, you don't need any Cox equipment at all. You just need the fiber modem, and then we can hook the Eero directly up to that. But if you still have a coax line coming into your house, that will require the Cox panoramic modem or whatever you use.
I didn't know if you have a fiber line.
So your fiber modem is going to look, most of them are Nokia. And so it'd be a little box. It's usually going to be mounted on an exterior wall, because basically what they do is they just run that fiber line on your house. They drill through the wall into your house, run the fiber line in, and then they mount the fiber modem right there on the wall. So if you would know if you have a fiber modem. Most people are like, oh, what is that? And they have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Because you do need another piece of equipment. So usually what people will do if they have Coax, they'll have the fiber modem, and then Coax needs to come out and install the panoramic Wi-Fi modem, but they just disable the modem feature. They have it operate just as a router, and they connect that to your fiber modem.
Is there a disadvantage to doing it that way?
I always make the comparison that your all-in-one device is a jack of all trades, master of none. I like having all of my devices separate and designated for that purpose. So like I have my modem, I have my router, and then I have my switch, which connects all my devices. That's how I prefer to do it, because my modem is great at being a modem. My router is great at being a router. And then my switches are great at being switches. When you have these all-in-one devices, they're pretty good at being a modem. They're okay at being a router. And they're okay at spreading Wi-Fi around your house. But when you have designated devices for each one of those steps in your network, you just find that it functions way better.
Will Cox come out and install a fiber modem if you ask them to?
You should already have, well, no, because you would need to have the fiber line already ran to your house.
Oh,
But you can always call and ask. Usually they're pretty good about letting people know that fiber is available in their area, because they want everyone to switch to fiber.
so how would you know if it's available? Like if you have that gigablast area, isn't that fiber?
No, so Coax is able to handle speeds of up to a gig. If you wanted anything above a gig, well, that's not entirely true. I do have a client who pays for more than a gig and has Coax, but you would need to call them and ask if you have fiber in your area. But yeah, you could definitely get Gigablast with Coax.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want anything above like 2.5, I'm not sure what the max is that Cox supports right now, but anything above that, you would have to have fiber, which is honestly way more than the average household needs. I always tell people, don't get more than a gig. Like, you don't need it. It's so unnecessary for the average person. Like, if all you're doing is working from home and streaming Netflix and stuff, a gig is plenty. You do not need more than that.
Yeah.
If you're a competitive gamer, money off of gaming, or if you're doing some crazy like stock trading and that's your source of income, then sure, maybe you want to invest in getting like the fastest speeds possible, because you're financially dependent on it.
Yeah.
But if you're watching Netflix every night and occasionally working from home, don't spend all that extra money. It's not worth it.
But in theory, it could, if fiber was available, you could have them put the fiber modem for your modem, Eero for your router.
Yep. And your Wi-Fi.
Yep. And then now you're talking about switch. Now the switch allows you to hardwire your devices so you're not Wi-Fi.
Correct.
How do you have your setup, your switch setup?
So I have a few. So I have, I actually kind of lucked out because I made friends with the guy who ran my fiber. And so I had him run it into my laundry room, which is where my kind of like head end is for all my gear.
Yeah.
And so I had him run my fiber line in all the way down to where my gear is. So my fiber modem's right there. I have my main Eero right next to it. And then I have a switch right next to that. So I go out of my Eero into my switch, and then out of my switch, all my hardwired connections around the house. So like I have one in my fiance's office, one in the master bedroom, two in the master bedroom. And then I have another switch in the living room that hardwires my Apple TV, my TV, everything else we have in there. So
nice.
Yeah.
Now, did you have to, like, after the house was built, go and wire that, or did you do it?
Yeah, I had to wire all that myself.
One story or two stories?
Single story.
Single story. And do you just go through the attic and just drop all the?
Yeah, go through the attic, drill down the header, and drop my wires down.
Dang. Okay. Yeah, I see stuff like that and I want to do it to my house, but at the same time, like addicts and me don't get along.
Yes. Especially during the summer in Arizona.
Yeah. But you guys do that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
So, okay. Very cool. Yeah. I've always thought of like putting a switch somewhere or like looking at like Eero. I was looking at like even Google mesh thing, but after talking to you, okay, the Eero is probably going to be the way better.
Yeah. And again, the nice thing about Eero is if you want to avoid needing to run hard lines all over the place, you can just add Eeros where you need hard lines, because each Eero has, depending on the one you get, at least 2 hardwire ports in the back of it.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh.
So some have none, but most of the ones they have at least 2. And if you get the Max 7, it's got 4.
That's all I need.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then you don't have physical hardline.
Yeah.
We've used that workaround a few times because some devices require to be hardwired. Yeah. And we figured out that as long as we have an Eero there and it's physically connected to the Eero, it still counts that as a hardline to the network, even though that Eero is wirelessly connected to the network.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Dude, I didn't know that. That's just going to change some stuff. I got to talk to my wife and like, can we get an Eero?
Yeah.
Like, we want to use. Why?
Pack it free for like, I think $300, maybe even $200. Yeah, you get it on sale. So
I've seen them at Costco. Like, they're, we're Costco fiends. Like, so it's at Costco. And no, it's got to be good.
Yeah. Well, yesterday, that's the day to go, apparently. Ed was at Costco yesterday. Yeah. We lucked out.
Yeah. I always go and it's just a madhouse, man. Yeah. And it's like, it always bothers me when they have the like sample areas and then people just park it like right in front of the aisle. I'm like, okay, like people are trying to still shop here. Can you move just a little bit?
I always tell my fiance, going to Costco is like going to Vegas, because it just feels like everybody's the main character and everybody has zero regard for anybody else around them.
Yeah.
And so they're the only people that exist. Like, you'll be walking down, oh, excuse me, and they just completely ignore you. Like, you exist in their world, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I've experienced that all.
Costco does that to people. I don't know how it is, but
yeah, I don't know. People just have this, they get into the zone. I think what it is, they know Costco is a madhouse and they put their game face on and they just go, all right, I'm on a mission and I'm just going to go get it done.
That's true. Yeah.
And
it's not a sightseeing place. It's I have my list. I'm going to get in there and get out. It's like,
yeah. Oh man. I remember this one time. I feel so bad about it to this day. This wasn't Costco. This was Fry's. I was going to the store. I got so frustrated at something. I don't know what it was. It was like crazy. It was packed. It was like just people were just being, I remember there was this cart. It was just an empty cart. I didn't see anybody around. And I'm like moving. I take the cart and I just very aggressively move it to the other side.
Yeah.
And some dude like, hey man. And I'm like, and his wife was like, calm down. And I'm like,
it was their cart.
Yeah, it was their cart. Or it's like, he was upset. He was about to come like, and I was like, dude, sorry, having a bad day. My bad. Like, like I'm not going to be like a jerk about it, but I'm right. I didn't realize, and he calmed down, but he's like, no, I'm sorry. Like, oh yeah. Sometimes, life gets, So I'm curious, like when we talk about bold moves, it often reshapes how we define what winning looks like and what success looks like. Has your definition of success changed because of this journey that you've been on?
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah. So, I mean, I think I made the same mistake most people make when they define success as like monetary, and monetary is 1,000% an aspect of it. But what success really looks like to me is having this free time to spend with my fiance, to start our family, and to experience life together. Because I think a lot of people in the pursuit of success end up losing a lot of their prime years in the pursuit of success. And then they get to 40, 50, 60 years old, they have millions of dollars, and now they're just kind of like, well, I don't have the energy to go do anything. Now I'm just going to retire and play golf for the rest of my days. And I don't want to fall into that trap. So my new definition of success is being financially stable enough by the time my goal is 45. So I got just shy of 20 years to do this. By 45, I want to be able to pretty much only be working part-time, still making enough money to pay the bills, and have enough time to where I can spend most of my time with my family, traveling, doing the things we want to do. I think that that's ultimately the definition of success. I think anybody who sees success as monetary or materialistic is going to end up very sad one day. At one point in time, I had the goal of getting a nice car, buying a house, having all these nice things. And I'm not rich by any stretch of the imagination, but I was in a position financially to afford a lot of those things. And so I bought all those things and very quickly realized those don't bring me true happiness. Actually, they bring you more stress because there are more things to maintain. And so you have the nice car, all of a sudden you are much more nervous about it getting damaged or, the upkeep on it. And same thing when you buy a house, it's like, well, now you just have all these extra expenses. They're good things to have, don't get me wrong, but those are not ultimately going to make you happy, and they're not going to make you feel successful long term. So to me, my idea of success at this point is starting a family, being able to have time to spend with that family while still being financially stable. I think if you can achieve all those things, it doesn't matter how many zeros are in your bank account, you will be happy.
Yeah. What's the next bold move for you?
That's probably having a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, getting married, I already proposed and everything. So that was a pretty bold move.
Yeah.
But yeah, then I think once we're married and having a child will be the next bold move for me.
That's cool. How did you propose?
So we were in California. We were taking a look at her old stomping grounds. She grew up in Lancaster, California. And so we didn't stay in Lancaster. Lancaster's a little rough. But we stayed over in Glendale. And so we went over to the Glendale Galleria, shopped around a little bit, went down to Santa Monica one day. And it kind of worked out perfectly because she forgot something in her car as we were walking down to the pier. So she runs back up to her car real quick. And as she's running up there, I pull the ring out and I show her friend. And I was like, hey, I need you to take some photos for me if you can while we're on the beach. I'm going to propose to her on the beach. And she was super excited, all for it. So we get down there, we walk down the pier, come back, we walk down and around to the beach. We're walking down the beach and it's just packed with people. It started to get a little overcast. And I was just like, I don't think this is going to be it. Like, this is going to be real hard to make a moment out of this. And, God was looking out for me that day. And we, at one point, it just seemed like everything opened up. There was just like nobody for 200 yards on the beach in Santa Monica, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. And then the sun starts to peek out through the clouds and it starts doing that kind of like, sunlight tunneling effect. And I was like, this is perfect. Like, I'm not going to get a better moment than this. So I get down on one knee and I had, some really cool, smooth things in my head that I was going to say. And the moment, some people might be better than me. The moment I got down on the knee, all of that is wiped from my brain. And I'm just sitting there kneeling there speechless. And I was like, short and simple, Eileen, will you marry me?
Oh, that's funny. That's crazy. Yeah, everything does kind of go out the window. It's when I proposed to my wife, so I took her out to dinner, and we were gonna go to this park, and I set out a slow blanket and she would sit down like by the lake and stuff. And I remember as we were doing that, she was like, I have to go to the bathroom, like because the food apparently had some stuff in it. I don't know.
Oh no!
So we had to drive to her house, and I had already asked her dad, like if I could, ask her to marry me and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And so he was the only one that knew. And so we pull into the house and she's like running in because she has to go. And Dad's like, what's going on? And I'm like, let's go to the bathroom. And then I think she had a sense of what I was going to do. Cause she was like, okay, let's go back out there. And like, normally you'd be like, okay, well that's done.
Right.
But we went back out there, sat down, chill out for a little bit. And you're just like, how are we going to do this? And I remember we're sitting down. I'm like, well, dang it. Like, how am I going to get on a knee? But she needs to be standing up. And I'm like, this is weird. So I stand up and she's sitting down and she's like, what's going on? And I'm like, well, get up. She's like, okay. And then I get down on the knee and I'm like, same thing, Carrie, will you marry me and stuff. And, and does yes, of course, and stuff. But it's just funny because that's a running joke. Like even like 20 years, 18 years later, we're like, well, get up. Like so weird, like it's such a guy thing to do. Like when you're trying to do something nice, but you have to like, you almost ruin the moment by trying to do something nice. Yeah. But let's also keep in mind, like, I'm like, I have little ADHD, a little bit on the spectrum, like all this stuff kind of fits. It's like,
Oh yeah. And you're stressed out. You're trying to.
yeah. Yeah, especially when things didn't even go as planned in the first place.
Right.
You're like trying to piece it all together.
Yeah.
It was funny. Just a few quick fire questions for you. So, what is your favorite book, podcast, or resource that inspires you to be bold?
Oh man, that's kind of tough. So I really like listening to Simon Sinek. I really like his stuff. Yeah, I don't really listen to as many podcasts these days as I used to. Yeah, I'm much more of a music listener throughout the day. But honestly, I mean, I would say right now in my life, mostly the Bible is what I'm really reading a lot of, because I'm a relatively new Christian. I found God about a year ago.
Nice.
And so, yeah, and it was a weird journey at first, because I kind of had this like imposter syndrome feeling, because I was like going to these groups with people who have been Christians their whole lives. I mean, like they were born, raised Christians, so they've been reading the Bible since they were however old. And so being there around these other people who had all this knowledge, were really, just when they wanted to say a prayer, they just immediately knew how to say a prayer for something. And I just kind of had this imposter feeling of like, oh, I don't feel like I'm one of these people. I mean, I believe in God. I accept Jesus in my life. But so I really started diving into the scripture. And my fiance and I are actually getting baptized on the 15th. And going through the baptism, thank you. Yeah. Going through the baptism process, what really kind of got me realizing why I felt that way. And it was because one of the things they talk about is faith without action is worthless. Meaning that you can read the Bible, you can believe in God, you can have faith, but if your actions don't reflect what you believe, then what's the point? And that was really big for me, because I was like, this is what I'm missing is, I can read, I can learn everything I want to learn, but if I don't start changing how I act, how I behave, and the things I do to reflect that, then I'm always going to feel this way. I'm always going to feel conflicted. So I've been really trying to do some self-growth in that respect, and just kind of, and part of that is acting more boldly, and realizing that I'm not going to get where I want to get by just idly going through these motions. Like this all takes active effort. One of the things being I just quit nicotine about a week ago, which is one of the hardest things to quit, I can say. Like I've quit I've quit a lot of things. Yeah. And nicotine has by far been
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's both my parents smoked, and that was tough seeing them try to quit, because it's work.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really hard. And I had to let my fiance know that that's what I was doing, because I definitely get a little agitated at times. And I've tried quitting before. I've pretty much been addicted to nicotine since I was 16. I started on cigarettes, and then I dipped for a little bit. I started vaping, and then as of late, I was using the Zen pouches. And the hardest thing about nicotine is like there's no immediate health consequence, really. Like there are some, but they're so small, as opposed to like, alcohol. People, you get too drunk, or with pot, maybe you have panic attacks, or with coke, your heart start getting heart problems. But with nicotine, it's like there's no real immediate like, oh, I need to quit this, I need to get it together. It's like there's very little to quit other than the fact that it's a substance that has control over you, and that in itself should be enough for you to realize you need to stop. There's long-term negative side effects, but fundamentally, I think for me, it's primarily that aspect. Letting a substance have control over me is not conducive to me flourishing and getting to where I want to go. So,
where do you go to church?
So we go to Heart Cry Church over in Santan.
Okay.
Pastor Billy is our pastor. We usually go to the 9 a.m. service. So, I'm not sure how long they've been there, but they're growing quite a bit. They're building a new worship center right now. They have a school that they opened up not too long ago, which is really cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a great church.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody is on a different, I would say, different path, I mean, everyone's on the same path and journey, but I think everyone's in a different stage in their growth, in
Yeah.
Christ. And it's like, very easy to kind of get that imposter syndrome, where you kind of think, oh, people know more than me. Some do, some don't, but I think, reading the Bible definitely helps you to get stronger in your faith, because that's primarily how God speaks to you,
Yeah.
Like, there are some times where you're just reading the passage and then you're like, whoa, like, did I just read what I thought I read?
Yeah.
It's so applicable, like,
Yeah.
and it's not by coincidence, like that's by,
Right.
it's funny. My son has this, it's a big comic book. It's like a book this big, but it's basically a Bible, like in comic book form.
Oh, okay.
Coolest thing, man. Like, I started reading that thing and I was, oh, this is awesome. Pictures. And it's like, not every story in the Bible's there, but just all of them, like all the big stories, and to read it in that form and seeing the actual visualization of it, for someone who's a visual learner, that was really cool. Like, to see all those stories and actually see like the pictures. I don't know, like,
yeah, that's 100% how I am, and that's why like the TV shows they're coming out with, like The Chosen, which is great. And then I don't know if you've seen House of David. That's a really House of David is awesome. It's like all about the partially about the rise, mostly about the fall of the House of Saul, and then how David takes over. And it goes through like David defeating Goliath, and super great show. Super awesome show. Yeah.
Where can you find? Is it on Netflix or is it
I don't think it's Paramount. It might be Paramount.
Yeah.
It's not Netflix or Hulu. I think it's either Paramount or Amazon. I think it might be Amazon.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a great show, and I love those kinds of shows because same thing. I'm a visual learner, and I've always had a hard time reading. Really, the best way for me to read is listening. You're an audiobook, like, because I'm great at auditory learning and I'm great at visual learning. I am really bad at reading and comprehending and digesting words when I read them.
I feel you in that one.
I'll read a paragraph and then I immediately have to go back and reread it because
I've struggled with that all my life. I've been like when I'm trying to read and retain visually, I'm like great, auditory great. The reading part takes a while to read, actually.
Reading out loud helps a little bit, but it's still just, I mean, when I watch a show, I can almost recite every detail.
Yeah.
Versus when I read a book, I really just kind of take little tidbits out of what I read. So
I'll read something and be like, what happened? Like,
yeah, right.
Like, so me and my family, we don't do it as much. We try to do it every day, but it doesn't happen. We try to read, at least a chapter, a night with the kids. Yeah, we have this plan. It's like, a chapter a day or whatever, but it's supposed to be in a year, but it's probably going to take us like 3 or 4 years, at this point.
Are you just going chronologically, like start to finish?
No, my wife found this checklist type thing, and it's supposed to be in, I don't know what order it's supposed to be in, but it's not like from cover to cover. You jump around a little bit, but
because you have like the same story told from multiple disciples' perspectives. So it's like you'll focus on one story, but go through each disciple's perspective.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's what it is.
We did something similar to that for Easter.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But I remember I was reading something and my son was like, well, what does that mean? And I'm like, what did I just read? I'm looking at my wife like, you want to take this one? Yeah. Because like I totally just blanked. I just read it.
Like I'm just in the zone.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, oh goodness. Okay. In one word, how would you encourage someone to be bolder today?
One word. I would say fearless. Because to be bold is to take action courageously or confidently. But I think simply being courageous or confident doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be bold. I think in order to be bold, you also have to have a certain amount of fearlessness in you in order to actually take those actions. And not the ignorance type of fearless where like you're ignorant to the danger that you're potentially putting yourself in front of, but fearless as in I understand the risks and I'm still going to push forward anyways. So yeah, I think I think we need more fearlessness in today's world.
I like it. What's the best piece of advice you ever received?
That would probably be, and I've heard it a million times from people older than me, but to enjoy my youth, which I feel like I am starting to get, because I mean, even at 28, I know I'm not that old, but I can still look back at, 16, 18 years old and be like, man, I was able to eat whatever I want and, had very little responsibility. I could go out and do whatever. I should have enjoyed those years a lot more than I did. And I just have this feeling when I'm 35, I'm going to look back to right now and think the same thing. And then same thing when I'm 45, I'm going to look back at 35. So I feel like there's this vicious cycle, and I think that's part of just the human experience is like, we're constantly looking back nostalgically of like, oh, that was such a great time in my life, even though at that moment I didn't feel like it. So
yeah,
I try to put that in perspective of like, I have my health, I have my energy. Like I need to recognize that at some point I'm going to look back and this is going to be the best moment in my life.
That's cool. Yeah, we tend to do that. We tend to look back and, oh man. Is there anything else or is there anything that you wanted to cover that we didn't cover?
No, not really. I mean, I think we went pretty in depth. I can talk all day about what I do for work, but I don't think everyone wants to hear that. But I think, no, I really like the topics we covered.
Cool. Well, Anthony, I gotta tell you, it's been a blast having you on the show. I'm glad you're able to stop by and share with us your journey, a little bit about your career and your job and just in your faith. I mean, that's always fun. Like, having a shared faith and like talking to people about it and just seeing how they're on that journey, because everyone's totally different path, but it's awesome. But yeah, man, until the next episode, I mean, this has been the Boldness podcast. And until next time, we are out.
Awesome for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for tuning in to Bold Moves with Matt Torres, where we celebrate Arizona's fiercest innovators, risk takers, and dreamers. We hope this episode sparked fresh ideas and fueled your courage to take action. Remember, real change begins with that first brave step. Stay connected for behind-the-scenes insights, exclusive episodes, and community updates. Follow us on social media to share your journey. For more inspiration, resources, and connections, visit boldmovespodcastaz.com. Until next time, keep daring, keep dreaming, and keep making bold moves wherever you are.